afternoon. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, 2014. Welcome to the Public Works and Gain Reduction Committee meeting. I'm Chairperson Joe Buscaino. I'm joined by Councilmember Corinne Price. And with that, we will get started with today's agenda. At this point, Mr. Clerk, let's open the general public comment. Do we have any cards for general public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, we will close general public comment and move to, we have a number of consent items before us, and unless Mr. Price has any questions, comments, concerns, I'd like to take items 1, items 3 through 15 on consent. You okay with that? Okay, that's item 1 and items 3 through 15. Any questions, Mr. Price?
I'm just double checking here. 15? Through 15?
Through 15 is 13, 14, 15.
Oh, cool. Okay, 15, good.
Okay, move to approve by Mr. Price. We'll move those items to City Council. Next item, we'll take number 2, if you can read that into the record.
Item number 2 is a report from the Bureau of Engineering relative to a rejection of a future sidewalk as a public sidewalk lying on San Pedro Street at First Street.
Very good. If I can bring up Council District 14 to come speak on this item. And for the record, we're now joined by Councilmember Cedillo. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. This motion was put forward because the easement was put in place.
Speak close to the mic if you can.
Sorry.
Is that mic on?
Hello.
There you go.
There you go. I guess I'll start over. Kevin Acabio for Councilmember Jose Huizar. The easement mentioned in the report was put in place presumably to give the city the right to widen the street along San Pedro more than 10 years ago. And at this time, we have no plans to widen. The street currently inhibits the property owner from leasing to the types of tenants that he'd like to fill the space with. And so removing this requirement would allow the owner to do so. So basically, it's a sort of a site constraint that's in there. And I understand that we have spoken with the Bureau of Engineering, and what we're proposing is contradictory to the report. But the facts I've laid out today is sort of the reasoning and the logic behind that.
Okay, if I can have BOE come forward. Mr. Yu. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, in response to CD14, what are there any existing plans that to widen the sidewalk or the street on this at this location?
At this time, I'm not aware of any plan from within the city to widen this roadway at this time.
And what are the consequences to the affected property if the petition is denied?
Then the existing property owner would have this burden of an existing easement within the property that may impact their feasibility of renting the property out. So that should be a certain fiscal impact to the property owner.
And if this committee agrees to comply with the petition, or what are the next steps for BOE?
Then BOE would, your committee would give BOE the instruction to prepare the necessary finding to support this approval, and then we will also prepare the necessary document and return it to the city clerk to be transmitted to the full council for approval.
Okay. Colleagues, I'm okay with moving forward for what Mr. Huizar is asking to do, and you have something in writing that you can share with the clerk as far as...
I can have something in before the committee meeting is over.
Okay, just make sure you get that, Mr. Clerk. Colleagues, any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll move forward on that.
Thank you.
And moving forward with...
We're going to amend the BOE report as recommended by CD14.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, with that, item number 16.
Item number 16 is a motion from Councilmembers Price and Buscaino relative to preparing and presenting an ordinance to regulate unattended collection boxes. This is also referred to the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We have one speaker card. Peter Kelly, please come forward on item number 16, and you have 2 minutes. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name's Peter Kelly. I'm with the firm Vectus Strategies, and we represent an entity called Planet Aid, which is a 501c3, which is an international leader in the bin collection business. What's happened over the past 15 or 20 years is that there's been huge public interest in recycling. That's why we're here today. There's a huge demand for this. We have 20,000 bins nationwide. We have over 700 here in Los Angeles. We are absolutely in favor of responsible regulation of this industry. The name of the company should be on the bin. You should have someone to contact in the event there's a problem like graffiti or an overpacked bin or what have you. We're totally in favor of it. We just would simply request that, in addition to the property owner okaying this, that the lawful occupier of a property also be able to give consent to place the bin. The city has a zero waste policy. We are a significant contributor can be a significant contributor to helping the city meet these goals. 8% of your waste presently is clothing. We can take a lot of that out of landfills and what have you, and we do it at no cost whatsoever to the city. So with that, we are very much in support of the motion, and we are looking forward to being in a partnership with the city to help reduce the amount of this type of waste going to landfills and taking it off the streets.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I'm going to defer to the maker of the motion, Mr. Price, on this item and turn it over to him. I know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you for your testimony, Mr. Kelly. These collection bins have really become a nuisance in some parts of the city. I think in the 9th District, of your 700, you may have 500 in the 9th.
We have the exact number. It's not that big, but it's actually they're fairly well dispersed around the
I
city.
mean, it's easy, but I got a list here. This is my running list of about 100 bins in the district.
Let the record reflect 4 pages.
Not just Planet Aid, but USA, clothes and shoes. Just a number of actors, most of whom are good. I think most who want to do the right thing, but frequently they are just dropped on the sidewalk, on a corner, on public land, and the boxes get graffiti, they attract other stuff, and it's just becoming a real problem. And so I think this the proposed legislation to regulate is reasonable, it's responsible. I think the good actors like your company would gladly comply with putting a name, address, a number, some kind of an identification on it. Many don't, and they, citizens are lulled into believing that they are donating to a nonprofit. Sometimes it's a for-profit, and again, nothing wrong with that. But when the collection boxes become a nuisance, certainly on public property, I think we have to be wary of it. Frequently, they are also on private property, and the private property owner doesn't know. I mean, he just sort of assumes it's okay. He may have some doubts, but doesn't want to raise the issue because, after all, it's giving away some clothes. It's collecting clothes. So, I think it's important that we have some accountability, some transparency. That if it's on public property or private property, the box be identified. There be someone responsible, and it doesn't become a nuisance either because it's been graffitied or tagged, or sometimes it becomes a place where others just drop clothing and other items that they want to understandably donate, but they don't know where. They think they can do it right by the box, and so the box becomes a magnet frequently for those. And then again, just the nuisance that it provides. So I'm pleased that we're moving forward with this. Pleased that at least one actor has seen the public benefit of better and more comprehensive regulation on this, and so I look forward to developing some rules and regs that are reasonable, responsible, hold everyone accountable, and at the same time collecting the goods, clothing, shoes, and other items that are so importantly needed in other parts of our world. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Shadillo.
We'd love to work with you. We have some campaigns in our district around branding and our Keep It Clean campaign. We have a similar scenario as Councilmember Price, and so we'd love to just partner with you because we think they also serve as amongst the other things, that there's a potential that they can serve as some place that we inform the public, that we can do a message, we can do some branding, and show some partnership.
We look forward to being a good partner. We have a long history of being a responsive partner all over this country. We have a well-deserved reputation if there's an issue with graffiti or someone's tipped over a bin or whatever the issue is, we're out there within 24 hours to fix it. And we think that we can be a partner. We have our goals are the same. Let's reduce that type of waste going into landfills. We can be a partner with you in accomplishing those objectives and at no cost to the city. So we look forward to the opportunity to participate and make a contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. If I can call up Mr. Jordan, I have a couple questions, and some of the questions that came up on the private property. Do we have the authority to regulate on private property as well as a public right-of-way?
Well, we talked about that internally a little bit. It's something that we would have to take a closer look at. I think my initial sense is yes, we can, but we would need to perhaps have a different set of regulations for the private property.
Would you fold in building and safety?
We would fold in building and safety. So what I did is, in advance of this motion being at this committee, I gave a copy of the motion to the attorney who heads up our section that advises the planning department in building and safety. So because the Public Works Department has that authority over the right-of-way, and in building and safety would be on the private property side, we'd have to sort of make sure the departments are working together.
Sure.
So we've the council, if this is adopted by council, that would be our first step, is to coordinate those efforts.
Any concerns with the requested ordinance that you see?
Pardon?
Any concerns with the requested ordinance that you have before you?
No, not at this time. We haven't really taken a good enough look. It's very specific. We would probably, the input from the representative from the one company is helpful. So I took some notes of what their thoughts are.
Good.
Nothing leaps out at me right now as a concern. As we looked into it further, we would certainly prepare an ordinance that would be something that could be legally enforced. To the extent we had to deviate in any significant way, we would fully brief the council on that.
Well, let me put on my senior lead officer hat, if I may. We've dealt with the broken window theory in the city of Los Angeles, thanks largely in part to Chief Bratton, and I feel this is another window in the broken window process that we see across our city. And if anything we can do, and this is something I dealt with as a slow, with these bins popping up here and there and overflowing and graffiti and just it's another thorn on my side as part of our problem-solving process and improving the quality of life. So something I'm supportive of, and I want to thank Mr. Price for moving this forward and seeing that we need to have some regulations in place because I'm hearing the same issues that Mr. Price is hearing from Watts to San Pedro from my field deputies.
Certainly already within the public, if we're talking about sites that are within the public right-of-way,
Right.
We already do have regulations that impact that. This is a new issue for me, one that I was not aware of there being problems with this. So we can take a look at what already exists in the municipal code as it concerns the public right-of-way.
Right, you're right. It may be an enforcement issue. Maybe there's maybe the laws are on the books, but it's a nuisance when it's on public land. It's not so much a nuisance if it's on private land, but frequently the owner, the tenant or the owner doesn't know that he has an option. It just pops up one day and there's no accountability. Frequently, I've had some conversations. They said, "Gee, I don't know where it came from. I thought it was supposed to be there." I said, "Well, you have a choice." They said, "Well, I do." And some say they don't mind. Frequently, they say, "Well, yeah, get it out of here. I don't want this thing on my corner.
So we can also work with the Bureau of Street Services
Yes.
as to what existing tools are in place already.
So
Maybe
that-
some of these things have permits. I just
Right.
don't.
That'll be our request, if there's no objections to request the city attorney and work with Bureau of Street Services and to come back to this committee at our next meeting with the report and draft ordinance. Our next meeting will be held on June 18th.
Okay, now, keep in mind, typically on something like this, we would ask that the full council adopt the motion with the recommendations, and then we would really prepare the
Yeah,
ordinance.
it's just adding another layer. If you could just put the whole package together and bring it back to this committee, I'd appreciate it.
We can certainly endeavor to take a look at that. It's our normal process would be sort of to have that instruction from the council. So, but we'll do whatever we can.
And I appreciate that. By
And
June
in fact,
18th.
Mr. Chairman, appreciate your directive on that. And let me just clarify, the intent would be that either the owner or the tenant could give consent to the bin, but there needs to be some kind of a permission, I think.
Correct, and that was one of the comments
Just
that
one of
the
the-
previous speaker made.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that's,
I cannot guarantee that would actually be able to have a full ordinance written by the next meeting date, but what we can certainly do is start the process of exploring it, particularly because there's two fundamentally different areas involved, the private property and the public right-of-way. The public right-of-way, there may be already sufficient tools in here for us to, take some enforcement actions to look at the areas that are those sort of broken windows type containers. But there's a significant amount of work that would need to be done to put something together that would cover both areas.
Okay, let's get to work. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. So we'll continue this till June 18th with the report back and also draft ordinance. Thank you. If we keep adding another layer.
No. Wait, let's just do this.
Colleagues, Special 1 will be before us. Last night on May 20th, 2014, CBS 2 News aired a report that alleges Bureau of Street Service employees had been improperly taking breaks and failing to document them. The suggestion that taxpayers' resources were squandered are extremely disturbing, especially considering the poor condition of our streets and our sidewalks. 8,200 lane miles of streets are in failed or nearly failed condition, and an estimated 4,600 miles of sidewalks are broken and cracked. Immediate action is required to ensure thorough investigation is conducted, and if the allegations are substantiated, the appropriate measures are taken to prevent a similar occurrence in the future. And if there's no objection, colleagues, I'd like to ask the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee to make findings as provided in Section 54954.2, subsection B2 of the Government Code, and pursuant to Rule 64 of the Rules of the City Council, that there's a need to take immediate action on this matter, and that the need for action came to the attention of the committee subsequent to the posting of today's agenda. So with that, I want to have direct Dennis in my office to show the video for my colleagues, those who have not seen it. Then I'll call up Mr. Nazario Salcedo to ask a few questions. This is brought to you by...
Your brains are forming the connections that determine how they learn, think, and grow. Talk and read to your children from day one. Their brains are actually developing with your every word. It's free, easy, and something you can do anytime. Talk, read, sing. Your words have the power to shape their world. Learn more at first5california.com/parents.
Some city leaders are talking about raising taxes to fix potholes in streets. So, CBS 2 investigative reporter David Goldstein took his undercover cameras to the streets to find out what some pothole crews are up to.
We caught these two LA pothole workers looking at an adult newspaper while sitting in the city truck. This crew quitting well before their shift ended. And these two going right to breakfast on taxpayer money, while motorists hit potholes just about every day.
Yeah.
Peter Genovese knows about potholes firsthand.
As soon as I hit it, I knew it was a flat tire immediately.
Look at what happened to his tire last February. After hitting this pothole on Plummer Street in Northridge, one he estimated to be 2 or 3 feet long and a few inches deep.
I was a little bit mad at myself for not seeing it in time, but also mad that there was a pothole that big in the street.
The pothole was repaired, presumably by one of these pothole repair crews. The Department of Street Services says there's only enough money in the budget for 12 crews to cover the entire city, trying to give us a smooth ride.
I got shots of it.
But with our hidden cameras, we watched as some crews didn't seem to be in any kind of hurry to fix the streets.
727.
We saw this truck leave the yard in South LA. Their only assignment that day was to fix an uneven sidewalk in the Melrose district where someone tripped and fell. But instead of heading directly to the job site,
753.
these guys stopped for breakfast while earning your taxpayer dollars.
Coconut water? Yeah, pretty good.
Inside Nick's in downtown LA, they chatted with the waiter, seemingly in no hurry to make any repairs. 40 minutes later, they left to start actual work and arrived at the job site 3 hours after their shift began. They worked for about 30 minutes, then one of the men went home sick.
All right, boys, getting in.
Another time, we saw one of the same men getting into the city truck after stopping for breakfast again before doing any work. We followed them around town, where they worked, stopped for lunch, and worked some more. We clocked them filling potholes for only about 2 hours and 20 minutes of their 8-hour day. We ran into one of them a week later.
People out here running over potholes all the time. You going to breakfast?
Kelly Miller didn't have anything to say, getting in his truck to make a call on the two-way radio, then coming out.
I've just been advised that I can't talk to you. There's a media procedure, and they just told me I can't talk to you. So that's.
Did you really want to talk to me?
No, I don't really.
We obtained Miller's worksheets for both days. It never mentioned stopping to eat before starting to work.
Are they supposed to note as well when they take a meal break on their worksheet?
Typically, yes, they do that.
We showed the video to Nazario Sauceda, the head of LA Street Services.
I really need to check what happened at that location. I really need to perform an investigation. And then at that time, I will let you know if indeed they were in violation of policy or procedure.
That's not the only truck we followed with our undercover cameras.
Okay, here he comes.
On this day, the assignment for this crew was to fill potholes on Nina Place in West LA.
The first pothole of the day here.
We did see them hard at work fixing the street. Their daily worksheet showed they began repairs at 10:25. At 1:05, they claimed to have started working on the last location. At 2:30, they say they arrived back at the yard. Their shift ends at 3.
Crew came at 12:50 p.m.
The only problem is we saw them at the yard at 12:50, arriving an hour and 40 minutes earlier than the 2:30 they claimed on their worksheet. In fact, we saw them leaving in their personal cars before 2 o'clock. All total, we saw them filling potholes only 2 hours of their 8-hour shift.
And you said you were at this street at 1:05.
Can't talk to you. That was it.
We got like 2 minutes left for that.
Yeah.
What do we have here? Oh, look, we have
You can fast forward that.
babies we're taught to from the time they're born are more likely to have a successful future. Talking and reading to children in their first years has a huge impact on what they do with the rest of their lives. The fewer words they hear, the greater their chances of dropping out of school and getting into trouble. Talk, read, sing. Your words have the power to shape their world. Learn more at first5california.com/parents.
Some city leaders are talking about raising taxes to fix potholes in the streets. So, CBS 2 investigative reporter David Gold. The first pothole of the day here.
We did see them hard at work fixing the street. Their daily worksheet showed they began repairs at 10:25. At 1:05, they claim to have started working on the last location. At 2:30, they say they arrived back at the yard. Their shift ends at 3.
Crew came at 12:50 p.m.
The only problem is we saw them at the yard at 12:50, arriving an hour and 40 minutes earlier than the 2:30 they claimed on their worksheet. In fact, we saw them leaving in their personal cars before 2 o'clock. All total, we saw them filling potholes only 2 hours of their 8-hour shift.
And you said you were at the street at 1:05. Getting up to you. Why can't you talk to me? You were back at the yard at 12:50 that day, sir. Are these daily worksheets supposed to be fairly accurate?
They are supposed to be extremely accurate. So if they're not accurate as per your comments, we will take the necessary action.
We just turned west on Venice.
Of course, travel time has to be taken into account, but we saw crews sitting and reading the newspaper, this one for more than an hour, or taking their time navigating the long way to and from locations. And many days, they were assigned to fill small cracks on the streets instead of potholes.
Operation Neighborhood Blitz.
All this comes at a time when the mayor is pushing for street repairs, and the city council is contemplating a half-cent sales tax on the November ballot to fix a crumbling infrastructure.
City time should be for city business, and I've asked the department to investigate this.
But after our investigation, political watchdog Jack Humphreyville calls the tax a recipe for disaster.
If they can't figure out how to manage filling potholes, how the hell are they going to figure out how to fix 40% of our streets?
Right now, that's left up to just these 12 crews, including Miller, who claims he knew we were watching him.
No, I knew you were following me a long time ago.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
You still went to breakfast all the time.
I rode you all over the place.
man.
I took you all over the city. It was funny.
Wasting taxpayer gas, too. David Goldstein, CBS 2 News.
So with that, if I can have Mr. Salceda come forward. And let me say, this hurts. If these allegations are true, and Mr. Salceda, I want to thank you for your comments in the piece. But I feel that we need to address this. Pretty disgusting to know if these allegations are true, that we're looking at a theft of taxpayers' money, and it's something that we hold very serious here at City Hall as elected representatives of the City of Los Angeles. And I want to thank you. This does not reflect on you and your leadership and your entire organization. And just like every profession, there's some bad apples out there. But I do need some explanation as to the procedures for documenting work time and breaks, and anxious to hear who will be conducting the investigation. If you can just address those two, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, good afternoon, council members. Nazario Salceda, Director of the Bureau of Street Services. And just to let you know, that guy that was being interviewed by David Goldstein wasn't me, it was George Clooney, but it looks like me. Just kidding, of course. First and foremost, I want to thank you, Councilman, for your words of support. I mean, that makes me feel very good knowing that the Chair of Public Works really understands the work of the men and women of the Bureau of Street Services. And let me start by saying that the men and women of the Bureau of Street Services work very, very hard every single day to provide the residents of this great city with quality street services in a timely and efficient manner. That is the mission of our organization. That is our established mission. So every time that our mission is compromised, I take those issues extremely seriously, especially if those issues come from the residents or the public, in this case from Mr. Goldstein, right? I can tell you that in my conversations with Mr. Goldstein, he provided more information and more allegations than what you saw in this video. I take those allegations seriously, but I must act based on facts. The same way that Mr. Goldstein took time to put together his report and complete his investigation, I am asking exactly for the same thing. time to complete a very comprehensive investigation to determine accountability, to determine the next steps to take. So in saying that, I asked Mr. Goldstein to provide me all the pertinent information that I need in order to perform an investigation. And that's what I'm pledging to all of you, council members, to the mayor, that I will not tolerate this kind of behavior if indeed this behavior is this description of this behavior is accurate as per the description given by Mr. Goldstein. But at this point, the only information that I can make available to you is that I will perform, based on the information that I receive, a very comprehensive investigation that will be performed by the way, not by the same people from the same division. It will be performed by the newly adopted Methods and Standards Division. Basically, this investigation will be performed by an independent group to determine what actions to take.
Appreciate that. If the allegations prove to be true, what remedies are available to the city to recuperate the costs?
Well, at this point, again, and please don't take this as a sign of disrespect, council member. I don't want to speculate. I don't want to guess, because in my opinion, people's reputations...
If these are allegations, I made it clear.
Yeah,
the allegations
if these allegations are true, there are steps that we can take. Number one, disciplinary action. I mean, there are steps that we need to take. Of course, disciplinary action comes in steps. You can't just take certain steps. Now, depending on the gravity of this case, the disciplinary action may go from a written counseling to possibly termination. This is why this is very, very important not to jump ahead until we have a complete investigation first.
Before I turn to my colleagues, I want to offer the Board of Public Works Commission President Kevin James to say a few words if you'd like. Mr. President. Then I'll go to you.
Yep.
And then to you. Mr. James, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the invitation and the opportunity. And I, with due respect to our bureau head, I understand the need to address this from the point of allegations. That said, that's a real ugly piece. In just 5 minutes and 28 seconds, you see a number of policies that are violated. In addition to that, from the Board of Public Works, there are other concerns that warrant a review. Those concerns would include the assignment of work allocation according to the sheets. Now, maybe Mr. Goldstein didn't have all the sheets, but that's something that certainly warrants review. But of note and of particular concern was the attitude at the conclusion of the video by the subject of the Bureau of Street Services worker. I will tell you that in my approaching 11 months in office and as the president of the Board of Public Works and as the liaison to the Bureau of Street Services, and I was out with a crew just yesterday, that does not accurately reflect or depict the attitude of our employees. However, and what is of great concern to me, and I know, council members, when you have a large bureau, and yes, there have been budget challenges. When you have a large bureau, it's frustrating, obviously, harmful, when the media, anybody, is able to find that bad apple. However, this wasn't a circumstance where Mr. Goldstein just got lucky and stumbled upon the bad apple. There were 12 crews going out. He had to follow 12 crews. He found 2 of the 12 that warranted the story. If they had been doing their job as they should have been doing, there would have been no story. We wouldn't be here today, at least under these circumstances. So the percentage of the problem is a bit higher, I'm afraid, according to the video, than just 1 out of several hundred. So I think that warrants review as well. I could go on. I think I would like to see, obviously what the next step related to the story is going to be, and obviously with what Mr. Sauceda is going to do in his role. Now, I will share with you that we spoke, Mr. Sauceda and I, immediately after. I did tell him that he had my support in doing whatever he needed to do to appropriately deal with this, and I would offer that support to this committee and to the council as well.
Very good.
And I will say also that in my comments to you today, council members, I'm quite frankly exercising some restraint.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. James. I do plan on introducing a more detailed motion on Friday. I know there won't be any action today. I want to turn over my colleagues and start with Mr. Cedillo for questions or comments.
So I appreciate both of you. Obviously, I concur with the mayor. People who get paid to do city work should do city service and do city work, and that's what it's for. But I think perhaps having a longer public life than most people here, it's very important to put this in a full context. So I applaud you, one, for your restraint, because it's challenging when somebody puts a camera and a mic right in front of your face without notice, preparation, opportunity to prepare, without the full information. So I applaud you. There are a lot of elements involved here, legal elements, questions of confidentiality, questions of civil service protections, questions of union contracts. There's a whole range, myriad of challenges to get to the core of what this means. And I think that's very important. When you do report back, we do want to see, is this 2 crews out of 12? Is this how many projects, 365 days a year, out of how many days? Because there's no question, Mr. Goldstein is the guy who will find the lint in your sock, right? But he also needs to know that the same First Amendment that affords him an incredible lifestyle and a huge paycheck is also the same First Amendment that protects the city workforce and protects due process. And so we have to appreciate that. I do have some immediate recommendations for you to consider. So one, Mr. Buscaino, Mr. Englander have been the lead in preparing the city for the possibility of us going forward to pave the streets. That is so important to the city. Its economics, its place, its brand, etc. And so the department's going to be under hyper scrutiny. That's just the reality. And we should live and work that way. That's okay. But to do so, I think, the department really needs to be on full notice. If there isn't anybody who hasn't seen this already, they need to see it in the department, because we need to be vigilant of that. Second is that, and I know Mr. Buscaino and I have had the same experience, we won tough political campaigns. And in doing those tough political campaigns, we send people out in the field as door knockers. And there are ways that go beyond the writing to keep track of what people are doing. And we were able to utilize both those methods in our campaign. I would encourage you for us to continue this discussion. We had an incredible consultant that can measure where people are at with technology, with apps, so that we know where people are at. You just track them. It should not be problematic for people who come here and get a full day's wage for a full day work. And so we've got to move our technology forward so that we don't have the scenarios where people are compromised. So I want to recommend those so that we have real-time evaluations of of work performance in the field. And I think that we can do that, and I think that we can work with the unions to figure out how to do that. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of work that does get performed. And I think you're right, and I think it's an unfortunate statement. No one's going to show the streets that were paved. There'll be no story on that. There'll be no story on all the work that's done. There'll be no story on the people who don't take a lunch break. There's not going to be a story on the people who came in early and left late. There's not going to be any story on the public service workers who have gone beyond what's expected, right? Who haven't utilized their vacation, haven't utilized their time off, hadn't. You know, there's a broader picture that, unfortunately, we'd love to see it on CBS. Maybe on Channel 35 we might get a shot at it, but it's simply not going to be that type. And so, but that's the reality for us, people who choose to be public servants, whether it's electeds, appointeds, or the person coming into the Bureau at the entry level. And so we know that, we accept that, and we have to deal with that.
Thank you, Councilman, for your...
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Price?
Thank you. Well, thank you both for your testimony and for your outrage. We certainly share it. It doesn't make any of us look good. And clearly, there are hard-working, committed professionals in the department. These are not. These are examples of the bad apples. Unfortunately, it's the brush that everyone gets sort of painted with. So we look forward to the investigation, to the results. Question though: are the trucks outfitted with the GPS? Is there kind of tracking? Back on the technology stuff, technology question. What kind
No, they are not,
available?
but let me share with you that this year, as part of our proposed budget, we requested the funding to, have handheld devices, GPS devices, to not only know where the employees or where the trucks are. It's not about being Big Brother. Right. It's about effectively deploying the resources that we have. Right. And we have requested, we had a line item for technology this year in our budget, and it was not approved, unfortunately.
Well, again, we think technology is certainly a tool. It's not going to be the answer, but it is a tool.
It is a good tool.
For management, for credibility, it keeps everybody honest. So I look for that. You mentioned in your testimony several times that you're going to get the information from the reporter and you're going to review it. But can't we gather some information independently already? I mean, can't you go back and what's going to be?
By all means, Councilman, we do have some information, some preliminary information. Actually, we're going to go back, quite a few months, and we're going to dissect every single small asphalt repair sheet. That's the real term, the actual term of the work form used by the employees, and basically we will reconcile those records versus the assignments to determine if indeed they were at that time. There are also other tools that we plan to use, but I wouldn't like to use them, mention them publicly, because then they can be, they can. If I'm going to alert someone, I'm going to start alerting employees. But there are other ways that we utilize, especially as they pertain to the truck utilization. So by all means, we started our investigation based with our information, but we need to at one point overlap the allegations versus the information that we have to look for the disparities. And then at that point, we determine accountability and responsibility.
Well, we look forward to your report.
Thank you, Councilman.
So the GPS on the equipment, but how about technology on how people check in, check out? I can't believe we're still using timesheets that have been used since the 1920s and 30s. But respectfully, if other departments using technology, swipe in, swipe out, check in, check out, punch in, punch out, any of the other departments that we're aware of in the Bureau that...
When applicable, where applicable, we use that technology. For example, the administrative staff will use exactly the equipment that you just described. In terms of field operations, a lot of things, a lot of information must be captured. Cost of the truck, cost of the material, quite a few things that are not readily available on the current systems used by the city. So we are working right now with our financial management division, the controller's office, in trying to determine the best way to capture this information in a simplified form. Trust me, nothing would make me happier, than having a system in which I just enter the information in real time and in a simple way. But unfortunately, we have so many other variables. Bonus codes, for example, we handle over 19 bonus codes. So it's a comprehensive world. It's not just entering 8 hours every day. It is very difficult, and the system right now is not readily available for us. But we're moving forward and trying to get the right system to like you're saying, Councilman, using technology wiser, in a wiser way.
Well, thank you. Again, colleagues, I'll be drafting a motion that we'll present to the City Council on Friday. And with that, thank you so much, Commissioner James, Mr. Salcedo, thank you so much for your report. Anything else on the agenda? We are good, right?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, with that, the committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.